We may feel that the UK has a great multicultural record when it comes to British media. Some of us may or may not even think that UK diversity problem exists due to television and other media outlets such as films, newspapers, magazines, and social media. We see similar versions of representations of Black, Asian, and other ethnic minorities in the media, and we continue to see similar faces and hear familiar voices in scenarios that don't really represent the wide array of people that we are.
As I was looking for ways to sustain myself after studying, researching media companies that I would have wanted to work for became extremely important to me. And in my research, it showed that people who are like me, from a minority ethnic background, would have had to take a longer path to change representations within media houses. So as I questioned that, I began to look into Britain's creative industries and the stagnant growth of diversity within it.
Figures show the UK was in a movement to create a one Britain for all. But the questions and the answers that got the stats reveals that institutional racism is still alive and well. If you don't know what that is, according to Macpherson report, institutional racism is the collective failure to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their colour, culture, or ethnic origin. It can be seen or detected in processes, attitudes, and behaviour which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness, and racist stereotyping, which disadvantage minority ethnic people. This is present in creative industries that include media and communications, which cover a range of jobs such as journalism, PR, and advertisement. My research identified that there are racial discriminations in journalism, television, and PR. So how can the media accurately represent a population that it doesn't reflect? Minority ethnic groups make up 13% of the UK-based industry, which has only risen by 2% in 2 years, which leave white ethnic groups with 71% of work in television.
It is what we use to describe the Black, Asian, and Hispanic minorities. But if over 7.6 million of us in the UK, it can get a little confusing when we're all lumped together as one. But despite the many programs for BAME to join mainstream creative workspaces, it kind of gets lost on who's who and the people who are the least beneficial.
I understand that BAME was trying to go for inclusivity, but now it's almost a box to tick for some places.
With the creative industries experiencing the largest growth in employment figures in the past 5 years and being the biggest employer of EU nationals, it just makes me question why Black people are at the bottom in terms of employment within mainstream media. Opportunity is very important in its own right, and we know that having a more diverse workforce can benefit broadcasters and media publications, as it would help create more authentic and innovative content that will reflect the lives and experience from all audiences around the world.
I have worked in other mainstream media platforms. I started my career from uni. I started at a national broadsheet newspaper as an intern for 7 months. I worked in PR for a little bit, and then I went back to work experiences at different magazines, ranging from fashion magazines, and then I ended up getting my first proper job at a celebrity magazine called Now in 2015, and I was there for nearly 2 years, and I moved to Pride after that.
What made you work for Pride?
One of the main attractions for working at Pride was the fact that I could write about things that affected Black women and things that interested Black women without it having to be something extra. It could just be, something I was writing about, and I didn't have to make the exception that it was about Black women. The understanding that it was for Black women is already there, without it having to be an extra additional or something different.
I looked into more Black media outlets and I found that there weren't many, but there were a few that did the job. I found a newspaper, which is named The Voice. It was created for the Black British community to provide news. That's what newspapers do. And then I found some magazines. There were like 3. Pride Magazine, Black Beauty and Hair, and also Glam Africa. But Glam Africa is actually based in South Africa, but it's quite popular here in the UK. There were no magazines for black men. There were no magazines for the LGBT community. And we also had TV stations. Vox Africa, Ben TV, although they focus on different ethnicities within the Black British community, we have that too. Beat Radio, ABN Radio, those are black owned radio stations that do provide entertainment for the black community also. But as you can see, I've just named like 6 media companies. It's not that much.
America has BET, Black Entertainment television. We do not have anything of that sort here in the UK. Yes, we do have shows, we have soaps that have like a couple of black people here and there, but there's no television show where the black people are the majority.
I noticed that in ethnic minority, should I say, within the creative industry, you kind of have to put in more work into it. Like, I would say that we're the most talented, basically, we're the most creative as well.
And that's what we do, work hard. Social media is the greatest example of creating representations to see within mainstream media, and it has set off a great movement of diversity within advertising and some mainstream programming. But we all know the talent exists. It's the programming and who's making the big decisions. Alongside tweets and posts that fight for changes within these industries, senior management within these companies still barely exist.
I feel to make British black media better, we should follow prototypes that are similar to an online publication such as Black Ballad. It requires you to subscribe for their content, which helps with the financial aspect of finding stories, which means that you're getting great content, and it doesn't divide the community. The vision for the future seems to be embracing diversity, and mainstream companies like BBC have actually made improvements to increase diversity by 2020, which is next year. But I hope we see similar changes in other media and communication companies. But till then, let's just hope for diversity because it is important.